Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and it is the top of the month, so we are going to go ahead and get started with another MMIW episode. Christine Cardinal. Christine Cardinal was born on November 16th, 1993, to mother Madeline Laurent Plouffe. She had a sister, Lisa, and brothers William and Raymond. She had two children, Caden and Keelan. Christine was living in Saddle Lake, approximately 170 kilometers north of Edmonton, when on October 13th, 2016, the then 22-year-old was last seen walking from the Bison Auto gas station in the community. After that, nothing. The family called her in as a missing person, and a search warrant was completed, but they were unable to find her. For 2 years, she remained missing until May of 2018 when Christine's remains were found in Saddle Lake. RCMP do not suspect foul play in her death, but as of 2018, we're supposedly waiting for the exact cause of death, and I cannot find an update on what they determined what it has been. There have been no further updates since 2018. Much like many of these cases, these are going to be short and without a whole lot of information, unfortunately, which we all know leaves families open-ended as well. So I really just want to keep highlighting them, even though in her case, they don't suspect foul play. Cindy Gladow. Cindy Gladow was a Cree woman and the oldest of 4 siblings. The family lived in Cold Lake until they moved to Edmonton years later. All sources report Cindy was a happy child, and she ended up living close to her mother's parents, and her grandmother called her Shandy. She was close to all of her extended family. Later in life, Gladow loved Facebook, chatting to her friends, cooking, and watching cooking shows. However, at some point, family reported that she fell into the wrong crowd, though she remained an optimist despite the ups and downs after this. By 2011, she was the mother of 3 children. On June 22nd, 2011, the then 36-year-old was found dead in an Edmonton hotel room. Cindy had gotten into sex work and was with a man named Bradley Barton at the time of her death. On video surveillance, Cindy had been in the same hotel room the night before, seen leaving, then returning the next night, where she was ultimately found in the bathtub. You see, Cindy had bled to death from an 11-centimeter wound to her vagina. On March 18, 2015, a jury found Bradley Barton not guilty of first-degree murder. The result of this was anger and rallies from St. John's to Victoria. At the rally, Cindy's mother wrote a statement that was read aloud by one of the organizers of an Edmonton rally. Part of it stated, quote, "My daughter, Cindy Ivy Gladow, was born on July 23rd, 1974, in Athabasca. Cindy was my only child for 5 years until my son Kevin was born. Cindy got jealous because she now had a brother. She wasn't a baby anymore." End quote. In June 2017, the Alberta Court of Appeal actually overturned Barton's acquittal and ordered a new trial. The appeal court decided that there were flaws in the way the jury was instructed to consider sexual assault offenses and the laws relating to consent. Barton's lawyer appealed, saying the appeal court's ruling is flawed. In June of 2017, the Alberta Court of Appeal overturned the acquittal of Ontario truck driver Bradley Barton in the death of Cindy Gladow and ordered a new trial, again citing flaws in the way the jury was instructed to consider sexual assault offenses and the laws relating to consent. In March of 2018, it was announced that the Supreme Court would review for an order for a new trial. And in 2021, the second trial occurred, and Bradley was found guilty of manslaughter. He was sentenced to 11.5 years. In January 2026, Bradley was already up for parole, but luckily was denied. The parole board cited that he would pose a risk to the community. They further stated, quote, "While you stated you took responsibility for the victim's death, your statements and explanations showed some rationalization and justification of your behaviors," end quote. The board wrote in its decision, Barton performed a, quote, "highly invasive," end quote, sexual act on his intoxicated victim, but failed to seek help, instead checking out of the hotel and lying to police to avoid responsibility. The board wrote, "The victim may have survived had she received timely medical help, which you deprived her of." All sources report that Bradley had taken responsibility for his actions, but also stated that he said it was a business arrangement in which Cindy agreed to dangerous sexual acts. So again, the flawed part of consent was the fact that Cindy was intoxicated at the time of this event and whether or not she should be considered able to consent at that point. Claudette Priscilla June Osborne Tayo was born on May 15th, 1987, in Manitoba, and was a member of the Norway House Cree Nation. Growing up, Claudette was a tomboy who was known for her large personality and her laughter. When Claudette was 12, her father was admitted to a nearby hospital. Unfortunately, while Claudette's father was in the hospital, Claudette suffered sexual abuse by a family friend. After that, Claudette ran away to Winnipeg, Manitoba, feeling like she couldn't really turn to her family, not because they wouldn't be supportive or helpful, but because she didn't want to be a burden to them. From there, her life got worse. She met an abusive older man who led her into using drugs, and then, of course, forced her into sex work. Claudette went by the street name Penny Tayo and used the money she earned on the streets to purchase more drugs. Eventually, her family intervened, helping her get into placement. Claudette's life seemed to be going upward, and she decided on a career to become a social worker. Soon, she met and became engaged to Matthew Bushby. In order to give her the best chance of success, the pair decided to move to Emerson, Manitoba. However, even after moving, Claudette continued to fall into drug use and would engage in sex works in order to pay for her habit. Still, the couple managed to stay together and had 2 children, Patience and Isaiah. Adding to the family, as Claudette had given birth to other children, Dayton and Layla, before meeting her fiancé. While she had been clean with 3 of her pregnancies, Claudette ended up backsliding and using while she was pregnant with Patience. After she was born on July 10, 2008, Child Protective Services almost immediately took Patience from Claudette. 15 days later, on the night of July 24, 2008, the then 21-year-old made multiple calls to loved ones. She asked to be picked up from the Lincoln Motor Hotel in Winnipeg. She left messages where she claimed a man was trying to force himself on her, and she felt unsafe. When she couldn't get a hold of anyone, she threw the man's keys out of the hotel window and ran off as he went for them. Claudette made it down the street to a payphone, where she continued attempting to get a hold of family, but still couldn't get an answer. At 6:30 a.m. on July 25th, she made one more call to her sister Tina Osborne, using a payphone located at the intersection of Selkirk Avenue and King Street. That final call also remained unanswered. Tina didn't get the message until days later when she was able to add minutes to her phone. Family went to police right after that and were told Claudette would likely show up in a few days. Despite what they were told, Claudette's family worried about her. They urged police to actually do something, as they felt the situation was wrong. In order to help get law enforcement involved, the chief of Norway House got in touch with the Winnipeg police to help facilitate a meeting in order to get an investigation underway. The first Winnipeg Police Service press release on Osborne circulated almost 2 weeks after she went missing. The WPS reported Winnipeg's Selkirk Avenue and Charles Street, an inner-city area known to sex trade workers, was the last place she was seen. Not long after the press release was shared, police revised the area in which they believe Claudette was last seen, changing it to the Lincoln Motor Hotel, where she had first made her calls for help. While there had been surveillance footage showing her leaving the hotel and heading down the street, given how long it took for investigators to get involved, it had already been recorded over. In November 2008, Claudette's family put up posters around Winnipeg. They also spoke to the media in hopes of gathering a group of volunteers to help search for Claudette. However, when the day came to search, no one other than family members showed up. 2 years after the disappearance, a judge signed off on allowing police access to the phone records from Claudette's phone card. From there, they were able to confirm her movements on the night she went missing. Given the new information, they once again changed the area where Claudette was last seen, finally stating her last known area of contact was Selkirk Avenue and King Street, where she made that phone call to her sister. In 2012, a joint collaboration between the RCMP and Winnipeg Police was created. Again, we all know this, Project Devote. The project would create a task force dedicated to investigating missing and murdered people in Manitoba. Claudette's case is one of many currently being investigated. The family has helped raise a $20,000 reward for information leading to Claudette's whereabouts. Few details about her case have been publicly commented on by law enforcement, as they don't want to compromise the integrity of the investigation. Claudette's family is frustrated over the number of officers who have taken on and abandoned her case. They worry parts of the investigation could be lost due to the number of people handling it. Constance, or Connie Lynn Cameron, was one of 3 kids in her family. The 20-year-old was from the Fisher River Cree Nation in Manitoba. The last time she was seen was on August 3, 1984, when a friend dropped her off at the corner of Higgins Avenue and Austin Street in Winnipeg. 3 days later, her body was discovered in a wooded area in Fort Garry district of the city. In 1985, Crime Stoppers offered a $2,000 reward for information relating to the case. Project Devote, just like the last case, has taken on her case as well in July of 2012. Corinne Musumin, 25, went missing in November 1986. She was last seen about 4 a.m. at the Salto First Nation near North Battleford, Saskatchewan. She was walking on a grid road, and extensive searches have failed to locate her. There is no other information on her case. Crystal Shannon Saunders was a Métis woman from Winnipeg. One friend, Leslie Hansen, stated, quote, "She had such a beautiful shining face. Her eyes. She had beautiful eyes, brown eyes that were sparkling and just like puppy dog eyes that just melted you." End quote. The pair were soul connected, according to Leslie, both with addiction issues, and were trying to get themselves together. Crystal had plans to deal with her addiction and get her daughter back. But on April 20th, 2007, the then 24-year-old was found in a ditch near St. Ambrose, Manitoba, by an off-duty police officer that was checking his trap lines. He kept the scene preserved while investigating authorities arrived. The Portage La Prairie RCMP originally investigated the case. Few details were released about her death. It remained that way until July 2012, when once again Project Devote, a police task force that investigates missing and murdered vulnerable persons cases, announced it would oversee the investigation. Just before her murder, Crystal was in rehabilitation at the Behavioral Health Foundation in St. Norbert in January of 2007. According to Leslie, Crystal was taking the program very seriously in an attempt to beat her crack addiction, but ended up actually leaving late March before the program was complete. And then, in January of 2024, an arrest was made. Kevin Charles Keogh was arrested after his DNA was matched to the scene where Crystal was found. DNA was originally actually rerun in 2014, and Kevin's DNA was in the system as the result of previous convictions. So that's how they found their match. But even though that happened in 2014, it took 10 years of additional investigating to link him to Crystal. Of the arrest, Superintendent Rob Lasson, the officer in charge of the RCMP's Major Crime Services, stated, quote, "While investigators worked tirelessly and brought the investigation to a successful conclusion, at the end of the day, this does not bring back Crystal," end quote. In April 2026, Kevin pleaded guilty to manslaughter, for which he received a 12-year sentence. Now remember, to all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.